When she was a child, she survived a rare bacterial infection known as St. Vitus Nance. As a young lady, she survived World War II. She also survived a 5,000-mile trip across the Atlantic Ocean aboard a cargo ship from England to the United States. She is a survivor, but she's more than a survivor. She's a hero. She's my hero. She's my granny. I've always admired her courage. She survived World War II. When I was young, she would tell me stories about it, and she would tell me about how when the Germans would fly over her small town of Penzance, they would actually drop all their bombs before they crossed the English Channel. So her and her family, whenever the missiles were coming down and the bombs were coming down, they would gather together in the kitchen underneath an iron dinner table. And underneath this iron dinner table, they would cluster together like a cluster of grapes in a great storm, and they would pray, and they would comfort each other, and they would build their faith and be there for one another as they would endure these horrific bombings. In the midst of all of that, though, in the midst of daunting danger, my granny and her family displayed and exhibited a fearless faith. In fact, Granny, when she talked about the war and she talked about these things, she never focused on the fear and on the bombs, but she always focused on the faith. She always talked about how God got them through and how God kept them safe. And she was firmly rooted in the belief that He had been with her during that whole time. In fact, during the war, she met her husband, an American soldier, my grandfather, and she fearlessly left England, left her home, everything she had ever known, sailed 5,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to start a family with him. She lived fearlessly because she was in love with life, and she was in love with her husband, and she had passion for life, and so she came on this great adventure not knowing what awaited her on the other side. I've also admired her faith. Whenever she came to the States, and she had deep roots in the Pentecostal church there in England, and when they came here to North Carolina, there was no Pentecostal church in the area, and so my granny began to pray and fast that one day somebody would come and start a Pentecostal church in our small town of Troy. My granny went away for the summer to England to visit some family, and when she came back from a summer visit in 1950, when she returned, she discovered that someone had started a little church of God right down the road from her house, and it was an answer to prayer. Not only was she a woman of faith, my granny is a woman of compassion. She's a giver, always has been. She's always been a lady who, because of her English culture, has carried herself with great class and dignity. But she's also been someone who has given so much. Even though she didn't have a lot, she has given much. She loved God and she loved people. In fact, it always seemed like praying and fasting even came easy for her because she was never really attached to too many things of this world. The only thing she was attached to was her love for her family and for her husband and her love for God. And I always admired that about her. See, these are the things I think about when I think about my granny. While I'm sure there's many other stories we could share about her being a sister and a mother and a friend, and I'm sure that we all have a lot of stories we could share about her. But these are the things I remember. These are the parts of her that have impacted me the most. Because these things have taught me to embrace every opportunity and to live life big. To never be tied to anything so much so that you can't leave it for the things that you really love and for the things that you're really passionate about. Today, my granny is 86 years old and her life has entered its autumn. Winter is around the corner. But for me and my family, my granny will always be the sun that we all orbit around. Warmed by her love, illuminated by her wisdom, empowered by her faith, and inflamed by her passion. Thank you.